Well, hello, friends. Welcome back to Commute Talk. It is quite warm in the car today, which is nice. Don't need a jacket. Uh, so, today Tim writes in asking about if I've ever been in a tricky spot with Serenity where I felt like if I can't figure this thing out, then this project is just doomed. Especially like early on, if there was something like that. And he says that he's in a situation like that right now with his personal project, and it's a bit spooky. So, thank you, Tim, for asking about this. It is indeed spooky, and it's a very interesting subject because it's something that we come across when we do personal projects, and there is no one around to help us, and nothing to lean on really. We're just left to our own devices, and that's by design, right? Because it's our personal project. And I think that it's honestly a really good place to be, because that's where you really put your own skills to the test and your own determination and I want to say courage, I guess, like courage to go against that instinct to give up. So I've certainly been in situations like that with Serenity, many times, and I guess they were more frequent early on, but I still get them now. Like, I am in situations like that as we speak. It's just that I've accepted them as part of life, part of the project, because it seems like no matter how many things I succeed at, the things I haven't succeeded at yet seem daunting and intimidating, and you know, just like, oh, am I really gonna be able to do that? it's almost like it's some kind of a personality defect more than anything, but I don't know if maybe it's a healthy thing. But regardless, I'm just trying to work with my own personality on this, so I've accepted that I feel this way about things I haven't understood yet, and I trust that if I just start on it, then I will build an understanding and things will get better. But I guess I could give some examples of things I've certainly felt this way about in Serenity. So I think one of the first things was multi-threading. So originally the Serenity kernel only had processes, and there were no threads. And it got to a point where I realized that, you know, the file manager is blocking while rendering these thumbnails, and it looks really ugly, and I can't interact with the UI while these thumbnails are being produced. I can't postpone this anymore. I need threads. And I'd been postponing doing threads for some time, and I'm not even really sure why in retrospect. It just, something about threads just seemed tricky, or like I had to break up the process class because all of the scheduling responsibilities were in the process class, so I had to break out a thread class that could represent like an execution context within that process, but it would still share the memory mapping stuff with the process, but like the stack would be different, the execution context would be different, and things like that. And I guess it made me have to engage with locks, and concurrency is one of those things that sort of always intimidates me no matter what. Like, whenever I get close to concurrency, I start to think like, this is gonna be tricky, isn't it? And in the end though, like, I always manage to figure it out, so I know that it's gonna be okay. But yeah, threads was a big one like that. And then I would say networking was another one. Just getting like a basic TCP and IP stack up and going, and it's still far from perfect, and like there's tons of missing bits and pieces in both the IP and TCP implementations, but but they do work to an extent, uh, unless you do something a little bit out of the ordinary, and then they'll get a little sad. Um, but progress has been made, and I got some really good help on it from um, Conrad, who worked on it a bunch, and um, it's been, I don't know. It's like it's constant. I'm constantly having this revelation that actually is perfectly possible. I was silly to be so intimidated. Um, Yet, and I understand logically that it applies to the next thing. It's just that emotionally, it just never seems to click. Like, I always have to go through that thing over and over and over. That, like, oh, this is so tricky. Like, how am I gonna do it? And then my brain just says, well, we are just gonna go through with it anyway, and you'll see. And then my heart eventually gets to see. But I don't know, man. Like, I don't know if I'm going to be stuck in this cycle for the rest of my life. But it's not the worst cycle to be stuck in, because it is a lovely thing when you surprise yourself positively. So, it's not the worst. And I don't know what your project is, Tim, or how that's going, but I'm pretty sure that if you just set your mind to what it is that you want to do, then you'll get through it. And then you'll go through that pleasant experience of surprising yourself, and it's such a beautiful thing, and just don't give up, because the only way to miss out on that experience really is to give up. If you keep pushing, you'll eventually get it. That's just how it is, and I'm sure you've been through that experience before, where you didn't know how to do something and you eventually did it. And why is it so hard to learn? Why is it so hard to learn that we can do these things? Like, why doesn't it? I don't know. But yeah, I definitely have this, and I had it with the graphics stuff in Serenity, like just getting that stuff working in the kernel, because I had a graphics library that I was building, the stuff that's libgui today, but I was building it on Linux, and I was running it in like an SDL application, and it just seemed really, really intimidating to bring that over to running on Serenity, because I had never done any kind of like low-level graphics programming like that, and I had never done graphics in that context. So it seemed like, oh, this is going to be real tricky, but then somehow it just worked out. And yeah. And yeah, so I mentioned that I have some things like that right now that are intimidating me, and I guess I can talk about some of them too, because there is file system locking, which is something that I mention every now and then, that it's something that bothers me. And it's just that it bothers me, but it doesn't bother me to the degree where I would like actually be forced to engage with it, so I keep pushing it aside. But Serenity has shoddy file system locking. It's too aggressive in some cases, it's not aggressive enough in others, and the lock primitive is it's very heavy-handed, and in the kernel we only have the lock essentially. We don't have any other primitives like a semaphore or something like that. And we do have a wait queue, which I suppose is a synchronization primitive, but concurrency is something that I keep sort of pushing in front of myself, because I don't want to engage with it too much. And eventually it's going to get to the point where we want to do multiprocessing, right? Like multiple CPU cores running concurrently, and then I'm not going to be able to run away from this anymore. But right now, I'm definitely feeling some of that, like, ooh, if I can't get a handle on this, uh, then there's some element of doom that I feel. um, but it's gonna be okay. I know that logically, right? And then, like IP fragmentation and like out of order TCP packets, stuff like that, intimidates me for some reason. I don't know why. It's just whenever I see these bugs that are probably caused by out of order network packets not being handled correctly, I just think like, oh, I'll have to sit down and deal with that at some point. I don't know why. Um, there's also that like staving off, pushing the doom in front of me. But I know that if I start working on it, it's gonna be okay. I just not doing it yet. I don't know why. What else is like that? Maybe porting the system to 64-bit is a little bit like that. Although I don't feel that much pressure to do that yet because there's still so much system design, system architecture stuff to do that is not 32-bit, not limited by 32 bits. Although there are some things that would be very, very nice to get in a 64-bit environment, like the potential for like address space layout randomization is obviously much, much greater on 64-bit because you have a much bigger address space to randomly hide things in. And there are some neat things about 64-bit, but I don't know. I don't feel super pressured to do that one. Although I must admit that I do feel some sense of like, well, I don't know how to do that yet, and like, am I going to be able to? And like, ooh. Anyway, I guess something that I'm learning on this project is that it's really, really helpful to just be honest with yourself and admit which things intimidate you, which things you don't have a great handle on, and just be willing to talk about them. And I don't know if this is specific to any particular subfield of programming, but I get a little bit of the impression in the operating system space that there is some amount of like there's some amount of people like wanting to project an image of like total confidence all the time, and I don't feel totally confident all the time, and I don't have the answers for everything, so in that way I feel a little bit like I don't really fit into this into this subculture, but I don't care because I'm still gonna do it. It's just that it doesn't come naturally to me anymore to try to act confident when I'm not, and so I just don't do it. And I hope that's I think that's going to be the best path in the end, and I really hope that that's something that can help other people understand that it's perfectly possible to approach this subject and like complicated computer programming subjects, even if you don't know how to do it when you start, or if you don't have the confidence when you start, because you build that confidence by engaging with it and building up your knowledge and your skill and your trust, faith in yourself, and whatever. through work. Anyways, I don't mean to like dunk on anyone or anything. I don't have anyone particular in mind. It's just I kind of get that impression from this, just from operating system discussions and stuff. If I read mailing lists of other projects, then people sound very confident in everything, and maybe that's because they are. Maybe I'm just very newbie still, and I haven't internalized these very basic concepts that people speak about with confidence. I don't know, but I'm not gonna do that thing where you fake it till you make it. So hopefully that's useful to someone. Anyways, I guess those are my thoughts on that. So I really appreciate the question. Like, when I saw that question, I thought, wow, I love this question, because I feel like that all the time. Not all the time, but regularly, and it's like always under the surface, always something that's intimidating me a little bit. And it was way worse early on, because it took me some time to even build up the courage to post the system online. And in retrospect, that was silly, but at the time I was still in that mindset where I felt like, this is so far outside my usual area of expertise. Maybe I shouldn't be showing what I'm doing because it's so amateurish and blah blah blah. And it is an interesting thing. Like, if you get kind of good at something, and then people know that you're kind of good at that thing, and you have like a little bit of a career history in that thing, and then to switch gears and do something that you're not kind of good at, it's weird, it's interesting, but it is also a lovely thing to experience that insecurity again, and that thirst and curiosity. So 10 out of 10 would definitely do again, and would recommend. Anyways, I'm running out of thoughts, so I'm just gonna say thank you, Tim, for the question. Thanks everyone for hanging out with me on the commute, and let's go and have a wonderful Wednesday, if possible. We'll do our best, and I'll see you next time. Bye.